Welcome again, everyone, to another edition of First Person, sponsored as always by the Precision Strip Company in Minster, Ohio. As we always talk about, a great place to work. They're always looking for good people to start a career or to finish one. They may be looking for you. So give them a call or check them out online with the address scrolling across the bottom of the screen as you watch First Person. Again, the Precision Strip Company, proud sponsors of PressProsMagazine.com. Unless you were living under a rock this past weekend, you know that the state volleyball finals took place at the Nutter Center at Fairborn down at Wright State University, and the VERSAILLES Tigers won their second consecutive Division III state championship, their third overall over the last decade. Their coach, Kenzie Bruggeman, joins us this afternoon.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for taking the time, congratulate you on really a neat accomplishment to win back-to-back state titles. Obviously, we're talking in your classroom.
Yes. Thank you very much. It's still pretty surreal.
You know, one of the neat things about this and what you've done is that you and I have talked several times this year.
Mm-hmm.
Just 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, a lot of people left you guys for dead.
Yeah.
Because I remember that day in Troy, Ohio, on a Saturday when you played and a good team and played well, but could not win, could not put it together to win at the end. And then I think you lost 3 of your next 4. At one point, you were 10-10 on the season, and yet turned that around, got your girls believing, and won a state title.
Yeah. I think at Troy was when we finally started to see what potential we had. And they were seeing that they were competing with a very elite program. Troy always has a very, very solid program. So when we were able to compete with them, and we almost had it in that 5th game, I think we were even up like 12 to something, and it was like, okay, we got it. They're going to believe it after this. And we still somehow fell short on that day, but it was just, it was so close all year. They were able to compete. We competed the first year at the Coldwater Invitational, to where we lost to OG in the finals, to where they saw and they believed their potential. But I mean, just playing the schedule that we do, we got pushed every single week, and got exposed to where the girls really did question themselves on what type of team they wanted to be. So then once we started tournament, it was actually that game right before that made us 10-10, I believe, was beating Fort Recovery. Crazy competitive match. It was another 5 sets, but instead on that one we took the 5th set, and I think they started to believe that they had a really good chance to turn it into something special. It's
ironic too, and I remember you and I talking about this many times during the season.
Mm-hmm.
You never stopped believing that this group of kids, this group of girls, had it in them, skill-wise, athleticism, mindset, certainly competitive instinct, to turn this around and do that. Now, it's a cliche, you know, to say I never stopped believing.
Right.
You know, Tug McGraw said that. The first guy I ever heard say that was the '69 world champion New York Mets, before you were even born.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have worn that phrase out over the years. You kind of made me a believer in that there are some people who really do know their kids well enough to know they can win.
The biggest thing that was a drawback that I didn't know if they were going to be able to come over was the leadership and the overall mindset of the team. We had a lot of young girls out there, even though a couple of them were seniors. So like Kelsey Custom Border and Alexa Didier, yeah, they're seniors, but last year there were 7 seniors that were on the court the majority of the time, so they had very different roles last year, to where this year they not only had to play and execute, but they also had to take on a leadership role. That takes time to develop, and until you're in that position, you're not going to know how to do it. And it took them all year to figure out, when this happens, I need to do this as a leader. And if this happens, I need to do this as a leader. And it's not that they didn't want to do that. They knew that that's the role that they wanted to take on. And even Elizabeth Ording, same sense. She's always been a leader by example. She's always been a phenomenal player. But she had to take on the vocal side of it, the off-the-court stuff that they just weren't used to doing, because they did have such a strong senior class in front of them. So throughout the season, they constantly got exposed of what it means to be a leader, and things aren't going well. What are you going to do? as an upperclassman to take the underclassmen under your wing and get them to be more comfortable. So I attest a lot to the seniors and even a couple of the returning lettermen to taking on those leadership roles and taking them very seriously and making younger girls feel comfortable in a very big venue at the Nutter Center.
Kenzie Bruggeman, the head volleyball coach, the state champion volleyball coach in Division III at VERSAILLES, our guest this week on First Person.
Yeah.
You know, it happens a lot of times where you get to the state final and you have a blowout decision or an outcome, because I think sometimes, and a lot of coaches believe, it's harder to get there, your biggest challenge. But you didn't do that this year. In fact, I was impressed with the Independence team and Tony Messina, who their coach, who literally admitted after the game that he said he paid you the highest compliment, because those were his words. That's a tough group of girls.
Yeah.
And he has seen a lot of good volleyball. He was at Padua, I know for many, many years. And that group was athletic, they were big, they were experienced, they were confident. You did beat the best to win.
Yeah, that was a really intense game, and I remember watching Independence at this semifinal, and we just kept saying, it was repeatedly between the coaches, they're so athletic, they don't make a lot of mistakes, they put up a great block every time. So we knew that it was going to be a really tough game.
They had that air of confidence when they walked out there. They weren't intimidated by the allure of the MAC and the reputation of VERSAILLES.
No, and it really was, and we even rewatched it. We've rewatched it already. The game again, and I didn't realize how intense. I mean, I felt it when I was coaching, but I didn't realize that the first two games were both 25-23. I mean, that is such a teeter-totter in a game to where, I mean, it can be as simple as being out of bounds by a half an inch. That it'll just completely swing the momentum, and if we lose that first game, I don't know what happens the rest of the matches.
Well, he said also too that after they beat him, them 25-23 in the second game, we knew we weren't going to win that in 5, because that team is just tough.
Yeah, and that's what I think I'm most proud of. The girls were in such intense situations, and that even goes back to our regional final game in against Fort Recovery. I mean, we were up by a lot in that 5th game, and it comes back, and that even went extra points. I think we won 17-15 or something. So I think it just attests to the girls on remaining mentally tough in those situations, taking that deep breath and controlling one thing at a time, which is so huge for them, because that's way bigger than volleyball. And that's what we push specifically as a coaching staff, to be able to tackle things. You have to look at it 1% at a time. You have to look at it one brick at a time. And those will get you through the tougher situations if you just hone in on what you can control.
I want to give you a quick minute here, or a second, to be salesmen. Because we've talked about this with a number of coaches around the area about the culture of volleyball and why it's so popular now. Why so many young girls, little girls in the 5th and 6th grade now are taking up volleyball. They're playing it year-round to be competitive.
Yeah.
And they're stealing, I think, some athletes from other sports, that maybe even basketball that they used to play now. Volleyball, because it's obviously opening up a lot of opportunities at the next level for grant and aids and things like that. Tell us about it.
I think it actually starts with just the exposure that they have at the collegiate level. You're seeing the Big Ten. I mean, they're on the Big Ten network every week now. So I think just overall exposure to the game has started that increase of it. And then I think what helps too is, specifically in this area, you're seeing high quality volleyball week in and week out, and people see how intense it is and how fast paced it is. You don't get a lot of sports that are like that, to where you can see complete dominance. A game's over in less than an hour, to where you have the 2.5 hour games of just back and forth and that nitty gritty. So I think there's a lot of good selling points for volleyball, and that's what naturally draws people in. Somebody gets a big fast kill. Doesn't take much to get excited. That takes a lot of athleticism. It brings a lot of energy, which is why I've always loved volleyball, to be able to express, and you've obviously exposed my energy and my intensity within the game.
I was going to ask you next if anybody has more fun coaching volleyball than you do.
I do, and I was even like that as a player. I just think it's such an amazing sport to be able to celebrate the little things, and to be able to do that repeatedly throughout a game. And you know just as well as I do, volleyball is such a game of momentum. And if you have that high energy, if you bring that intensity, you're more likely to keep that momentum on your side. So it's something that I definitely push as a coach, and I do tend to get a little invested during the games.
I said to you after the game the other day, I'll turn your cheeks red now, because they said to you the other day, if you win one title, you're sort of a footnote in the record book. But if you win back-to-back titles, that's hard to do in any sport. It's hard to do at any level of sport. And you joined some pretty elite company. I was just thinking on the way in today of coaches like Kim Metz, who won back-to-back a couple of years ago. John Cash did it at Miami East a few years ago. Amy Steininger.
Amazing.
Over at Marion, I think won back-to-back one time.
Yes. That was when I was in high school. She is such an amazing coach, so smart, and she was amazing. And then to even be in the same conversation with those other names is not, I am nowhere near their level, and they are such huge mentors for me, and people that I study quite often, to try and even get to that same level as them.
Well, whether you admit it or not, you are in the same level now, because you are now back-to-back title winner in Division III volleyball. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That is really cool stuff, and this gal with me is really a cool coach at VERSAILLES High School, reigning champions in Division III, the Tigers.
Yes,
Neat
thank
stuff.
you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Kenzie. Thank you for your time, and that wraps up another edition of First Person, again sponsored by the Precision Strip Company in Minster. Check them out. A great place to start your career, a great place to finish one. For Kenzie Bruggeman and our sponsors, we thank you again for your support of what we do every week on PressProsMagazine.com. We'll see you again next time with another edition of First Person.